Well, yeah, that's why I'm shooting this little test, is because the real logistics of where we can fit the camera and actually get a shot and get the scene and then sort of tell the story, which is out here somewhere.
It was amazing when George presented Phantom Menace to us. The idea that we could even do it in time or even do it at all seemed pretty much impossible. But we all just focused on it and just said, okay, let's do this, and divided the show up. The work was always conceived from the beginning to not so much do synthetic CG backgrounds, but to try to have those all be real, you know, real locations, real miniatures that we could do some work on. But the CG was used for the characters and for the compositing, and that's, I think, was really a good way to go, because at that time we didn't really have the tools to make landscapes and all look very real. And any time, I still feel this, any time that you can start with something real, you should use it, because it forces the work up to that level. And I think that combination of the two always keeps you sort of on your toes. Is this real or is this fake? But you buy into it and you believe it.
In The Phantom Menace, we visit Naboo, which is the home planet of the Queen. And it's a critical planet because it's kind of the center of, the start of Episode 1. And for the aesthetic of it, I mean, it was really interesting because, at this time, this was before the Empire, and George really wanted to create an aesthetic where it was a mix of different styles. And in some ways, it was a lot more romantic.
Yeah, and even here, you could put ivy sort of growing up.
It's a society that's very integrated in terms of technology with nature. And once we settled on that idea, it really grounded the look of the planet.
The big battle was pretty difficult at the time, because nobody up until that time had done a synthetic battle with like thousands of soldiers or people fighting each other, creatures fighting each other. It's been done a lot since, but that was, as far as I know, it's the first time it had really been done without using real people, all computer graphics. We didn't do any sort of crowd simulations or anything like that with emotions. They were all real motion capture or hand animated characters all the time that we just replicated over and over and shifted them around a little bit so that you couldn't tell one character was moving the same way as another. But then they get into a battle and we've got all the traditional sort of more Star Wars-y type explosions and stuff like that. And we used everything we could think of. Mostly, there was a lot less computer graphics than people might think. We did a lot of stuff with real explosions, real miniature ships that you see going along on the ground that crash. We had a really nice model shop here, and at the time that seemed to be the best way to do it. And I still think it was, because it looks pretty good.
On Naboo, there is these other society, which is complementary to the Queen's world, which are the Gungans. And it was really interesting because George had this brilliant idea of creating sort of this underwater society. The Gungans actually had this technology of force fields, and they can create these bubbles underneath the ocean. And that was a really fun thing to explore, because visually it's stunning, of course, because you're literally in a world of windows. One of the wonderful challenges that George kind of laid on all of us was, okay, we're going to create something visually stunning, but he also wanted to really lay down the foundation that it had to look believable. It had to have logic and in a sense that, no, this world really could exist.
It really has to do with when you see the cut sequence. He's way down at the end of the tunnel. It's real tiny.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of say, oh, monster.
Okay.
The underwater sequence, I'd always wanted to do something like that, and especially wanted to do something with sort of that manta ray designed ship. George was pretty open and shot designs, and I came up with a lot of the stuff that showed the different size scales of the fish, how to, with ideas about how to set the shots up so that you always thought you were seeing a bigger fish, which is sort of the punchline to the entire sequence.
When I first saw the finished film, I was really thrilled. I mean, it was in many ways what we saw in our mind's eye come to life. I spent, literally years working on the planet itself, trying to design the aesthetic for it. And the execution by ILM was just flawless. I mean, it just looked great.